You're watching the news summary on Kazakh TV. I'm Zhana Sagandikova, and today we'll review the major news of the week from Kazakhstan. The fight against terrorism was high on the agenda at the meeting of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, which was held in Dushanbe last week. For Tajikistan, the topic was particularly important as the country shares a border with Afghanistan, where the militant activities are heating up. The situation in Afghanistan remains volatile, and Kazakh President Nursultan Nazarbayev stressed the need to be ready to help respond at any threats at any time.
Armed guards, security, roadblocks. All these ensure security for important political events. However, this time the official Dushanbe strengthened the security measures. Ex-Deputy Defense Minister is still hiding somewhere in the mountains. However, the main danger, which creates problems for the Tajik government, is not the attack of the rebel general, but in the situation that radicals of the terrorist group of Iraq and the Levant are reinforcing in the neighboring Afghanistan. Leaders of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO, member states particularly focused on this issue. One of the main issues is a potential security threat. It emerges primarily from the international terrorist organizations, and it is, above all, more dangerous here in Central Asia, unfortunately, and it should be honestly admitted the individual citizens of the CSTO member states are located close to these radical structures, go to hotspots in the Middle East and Afghanistan to participate in illegal activities. This fact calls for action on our part. Tajikistan borders with Afghanistan, and according to Nursultan Nazarbayev, the country is at the forefront of the fight against the spread of terrorism and drug trafficking. Now more than ever, it is important to support the neighboring country. Humanitarian assistance of almost $3 million can be very useful. In order to adequately respond to risks and challenges emanating from the Afghan territory, it is necessary to increase joint efforts within the Collective Security Treaty Organization, both bilaterally and in the framework of other international organizations. We continue to provide technical and humanitarian assistance to Kabul, delivering food, fuel, medicine, and educating young Afghans in Kazakhstan's leading universities. It is a challenging situation in the region. The terrorist group that is reinforcing in the neighboring Afghanistan. The CSTO Collective Rapid Reaction Forces need to show increased combat capability. The recent unscheduled drills were evidences of their readiness to action. Terrorist organization rebels managed to seize large areas of Iraq and Syria over the past 3 years. The North African countries face a threat as well. 6 CSTO leaders urged the world to join forces in the fight against terrorism. The militants are threatening Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem, Europe and Russia, Central and Southeast Asia. It is necessary to put aside geopolitical ambitions, to abandon the so-called double standards, the policy of direct or indirect use of certain terrorist groups for their own opportunistic purposes, including change of unwanted to some governments or regimes.
A scientific cooperation, updating technical regulations, the introduction of agricultural innovations, and cooperation and mutual investments are key in the development of cooperation in the agriculture between Kazakhstan and Russia. Nursultan Nazarbayev expressed his opinion at the plenary session of the 12th Forum of Interregional Cooperation of Kazakhstan and Russia.
According to the Kazakh leader, food is one of the most stable currencies, and the real value of humanity is the agricultural complex. Russia and Kazakhstan are the 2 agro-industrial countries. This gives them a great advantage. Joint acreage of the 2 states is 435 million hectares, or more than 10% of the world's resources. But the countries need to ensure the quality of the goods, not only relying on the quantity, according to Nazarbayev. It is time to develop the new standards and requirements of technical regulations in a clear description of the product composition and quality of raw materials. There is no clear differentiation between natural and reconstituted milk. I and my friend Alexander Grigorievich argue, he says, they add powder here. It is skimmed and diluted, but it is not. It is whole milk. This is a beverage. It is considered a milky beverage in the West and sold at the same price as our milk. But he should now strongly argue with me here, of course, but in fact, it is. We need to figure it out. Our producers say, why so? We do not have boundaries. This is our fault. There should be a fair competition between producers of natural and reconstituted milk. The 12th plenary session of the International Cooperation Forum brought together 28 heads of the largest regions of Kazakhstan and Russia. Since the first such forum held in 2003 at the initiative of the President Nazarbayev, the trade turnover between the countries increased 6 times, up to $21 billion. Even now, in the period of global instability, the index increased by 3%.
Мы заинтересованы в выстраивании производственных и технологических цепочек в сельском хозяйстве.
We are interested in building production and processing chains in the agriculture sector, food processing and other related industries. I am convinced that all participants will benefit from such cooperation. It is easier to raise competitiveness in the global market jointly, reducing dependence on foreign suppliers. That is the guarantee of economic growth and food security of our countries.
2 new projects were presented under the working visit of the President Nazarbayev to Atyrau. The first project is a plant for production of fiber optic cables. The cost of the project implemented within the regional map of industrialization is 715 million tenge and capacity is 5,000 kilometers per year. The advantages of optical fiber include good speed and minimum losses in transmission of information. The main task of the PAID project and roadmap of business is to cover the market's demand by the domestic product. The issue of professional college graduates' employment was also solved, given that in the near future, 2 more manufactories for the production of copper-containing cables will be launched in this region.
The first phase is a painting of the fiber. That is, the fiber arrives at the plant, but it is not painted, and the maximum speed it can be painted at is 1,800 meters per minute.
The second facility is a plant for the production of oversized and super heavy equipment for the oil and gas industry. The project is implemented based on the Atyrau Nefti-Mash complex. It is planned to produce equipment weighing more than 1,000 tons. The enterprise has already signed first contracts. President was impressed by the results of the newly opened plant. Nazarbayev wished not to slow down the pace and to increase production. He once again called on the Kazakhstanis to support the domestic producers. Nazarbayev himself buys domestically produced clothes.
There was no such thing before. We started to produce our own goods. I tell everyone, buy domestic products. I arrived here in clothes that were made in Kazakhstan.
Placement of the nuclear fuel bank imposes a great responsibility on Kazakhstan. This opinion was expressed by U.S. politicians during the meeting at Kazakhstan's embassy in Washington, D.C. To remind, in August, the government of our country and the International Atomic Energy Agency signed an agreement on the establishment of the loan-rich uranium bank. This event is intended to become another significant step towards nuclear disarmament.
Under-Secretary of State for Arms Control of the U.S., Rose Guttemüller, the author of Non-Lugar Program of Nuclear Disarmament, and the former Senator Sam Nunn and other well-known politicians gathered at the Embassy of Kazakhstan in Washington. The reason for the meeting of more than 60 well-known American politicians was the question of nuclear fuel bank establishment in Kazakhstan. According to them, Kazakhstan, previously called the leader of the nuclear disarmament movement, took another step towards strengthening global security.
The government of Kazakhstan, who has been also to the healthy future of civil nuclear power. So I've contributed through Sam's original concept and vision.
Kazakhstan is one of the world's largest uranium producers. The country has the second largest stock of the radioactive element, and today we are in line with the states that provide its safe storage. Now, the need to use the atom for peaceful purposes stays along with the issue of nuclear disarmament. Therefore, storage of low-enriched uranium in one place will help to minimize the threat. Also, the step is necessary to prevent the use of the hazardous element in nuclear terrorism.
President Nazarbayev and Kazakhstan have set an example. NTI is also grateful to the IAEA for its leadership, Director Elberde and now Director Amano.
The nuclear fuel bank will be located in Ust-Kamenogorsk in the territory of the Ulbinsk metallurgical plant, which has 50 years of experience in this field. The Americans praise the Ulbinsk example and sincerely hope for further deepening of nuclear cooperation and partnership between the U.S. and Kazakhstan.
Russian Prosecutor's General's office returned to the case of the ProtonM rocket crash at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in July 2013 to the investigative committee. The investigation has been resumed. According to the newspaper Izvestia, with reference to the Deputy Prosecutor General Viktor Green, materials have been sent back to the investigative committee because they considered that a criminal case had been poorly investigated. Due to the ProtonM accident with 3 members on board, the damage to Kazakhstan amount to 13.6 billion tenge. The Russian side has estimated losses of 5 billion rubles. A series of examinations established the cause of the accident. It is a supernumerary work and the ProtonM of the 3 angular rate sensors, which led to the receiving of incorrect data by the control system on its orientation in space. 3 members of the Space Center were to go on trial. The total amount of transactions between Kazakhstan and China can reach about $50 billion. This was announced on Wednesday at the first Kazakh-Chinese Experts Forum by the director of Kazakhstan Institute for Strategic Studies, Ilan Karin. According to him, currently negotiations are underway on the establishment of 45 joint ventures in the fields of mechanical engineering, mining and metallurgical and chemical industries. Meanwhile, the expert noted that today China is actively involved in financing the construction of roads in Kazakhstan. According to Karin, this is due to the fact that the strategic vision of Astana and Beijing and the development of transport communications coincides with one another. Now there is a pair of Chinese joint projects named the Economic Belts of the Silk Road and the Kazakhstan program Joly, informs the director of Kazakhstan Institute for Strategic Studies.
China first agreed to provide facilities, construction and modernization of transport networks inside Kazakhstan. This is a road junction in Almaty, construction of the road Almaty-Ust-Kamenogorsk and several other projects. Kazakhstan is conducting a large-scale project on the modernization of the seaport Aktau. It currently provides 25% of freight at the Caspian Sea. After upgrading, it will further increase by 10 to 15%.
Kazakhstan has imposed temporary restrictions on the import and sale of the products manufactured by some companies from Kyrgyzstan and Russia. The laboratory results showed repeated violations of the sanitary and epidemiological and health indicators in technical regulations.
The ban was imposed by the Committee on Consumer Protection. This list includes Kochland cheese, yogurt, condensed milk, butter, sausage and waffles.
Customs procedures are being simplified for the participants of foreign economic activities. The Astana State Revenue Department staff told entrepreneurs about the reduction of the number of necessary documents for registration and the introduction of an electronic declaration system. In addition, labeling of certain products will be introduced to combat smuggling on the territory of the Eurasian Economic Union. Among the goods to be labeled are fur products, drugs, cell phones, computers and household appliances. Electronic labeling of the goods will be applied at the production plants or at temporary storage warehouses.
The electronic declaration is envisaged in the legislative norms. We are now working on the development of an information system, and as soon as the work is completed, we expect that electronic declaration will be introduced in fall. In case of violations, the participant of foreign trade activities will be able to admit own emissions and avoid administrative charges.
A 49% increase on excise taxes on tobacco will solve the problem of the budget deficit. A corresponding statement was made by the activists of the National Coalition for Smoke-Free Kazakhstan. According to the research conducted by the coalition, the revenue to the budget rose from 46 to 79 billion tenge in the past year due to a one-time increase on tobacco excise taxes by 94%. At the same time, tobacco sales declined by 3 billion cigarettes. This indicator has encouraged the representatives of the Ministry of Healthcare and Social Development to sign an open letter to the country's Prime Minister.
In this scenario, the average cost is 400 tenge. Excise taxes will increase to 184 billion tenge. At the same time, the state will spend nothing.
According to the Russian experts, in case of an increase in excise taxes by 49%, the number of smokers in Kazakhstan will reduce by 54,000 people, while revenues in the budget with an increase in cigarette prices could rise by more than 3 times. Construction companies are going to abandon the dollar. Kazakhstan's Association of Builders note that property prices rose by more than 4% after the abolition of the currency corridor. De-dollarization of housing will keep property prices at the same level. The association also intends to review relations with suppliers of building materials and services. Chairman of the board of the Kazakhstan's Association of Builders, Aydin Vakimbayev, said,
This means that Kazakhstan's Association of Builders will set prices for new housing only in the national currency and will require the same measures from other market participants. As a result, it will contribute to inflation targeting, cost containment, and prices per square meter. While choosing suppliers, we will give priority to those in relation to which the pricing built on a dollar equivalent is excluded and those with maximum of local content.
Drones with mounted cameras are undergoing examination in Kazakhstan. Since early September, the Civil Aviation Committee has registered first 5 drones. Next month, a new set of rules which will describe in detail the equipment used will be presented.
Those drones, which are less than ½ kilograms, will not be registered. In all other cases, the device is not allowed to be used at a height of over 100 meters as well as near the aircraft. Recently, we had cases of threats to flight safety. For example, flying of unmanned aircraft in the airport area directly in the zone of the runway. There are also pictures made by drones in the vicinity where the aircraft landed. There were cases when the aircrafts changed their way to prevent a collision with drones at the airport. They pose a real threat to flight safety. Boeing Commander Yerbola Spanov agrees with the need to register drones. He has been flying the aircraft for 40 years and knows firsthand about possible threats during landing. Irresponsible attitude of the drone's owners eliminates the possibility of air traffic control services to notice the flying machine in the air because of its small size, and the reflectance is very low. In addition, its speed is slow too, so the only way to define it is to equip them with transponders like aircrafts have. Drones are indispensable in the construction of roads of large facilities. Users of quadcopters Adilbek Basenbayev and Galim Alikulov said they are assembling and actively using them in their work. Both agree that it is time to regulate the activities of this technique. We need rules, especially for multicopters and other unmanned devices that are used in an urban area. Multicopter poses a danger in case of damage of some parts. It may fall at any place. We use them during shootings when it is necessary to show the scale of the project, mainly in large facilities, plants, and construction sites. The most important thing is to comply with safety instructions. In October, the International Civil Aviation Organization will present a legal and regulatory framework which will envisage the rules of drones management and control after their registration. Meanwhile, Kazakhstan relevant agency accepts online applications for their license.
The National Hydrometeorological Service of Kazakhstan will assist Central Asian countries in preventing floods. Flood risk assessment project is supposed to be implemented in Astana by the end of 2016 with the support of the World Meteorological Organization. This system will be introduced based on Kazakh-Chinese, which will become a regional flood forecasting center. The U.S. Hydrologic Research Center will provide technical assistance and staff training, while the USAID will allocate funding for this project. Under the project's central service designed to process the data coming from the satellites will be placed at Kazakh National Hydrometeorological Service Kazakh-Chinese. In addition, the organization's staff will undergo distance learning courses in Kazakhstan and San Diego. Selection of experts for the training is already underway.
The finance is provided by USAID. We face only one task: to organize the work and extend the information that we will receive to central servers, to other Central Asia countries.
Archaeologists have proved that the south residence of Ablai Khan is located on the coast of the Aris River. They have found ancient buildings during excavations in the ancient settlement named Han Korgan, which is 40 kilometers from Shymkent. Numerous artifacts were revealed, and comparing them with the data of folklore sources, scientists have concluded that Ablai Khan had spent the last months of his life in this place.
The monument is connected with the outstanding Kazakh Khan and a statesman, Ablai, who has spent the last few days of his life and later passed away here. We have proved it archaeologically. Archaeological evidence confirmed written sources and ethnographic research, therefore there is no doubt.
The last place of Ablai Khan's residence will become a monument. The height of the mount will be 9 meters. The area is about 3 hectares.
чтобы дети наши узнали.
We call the monument Kazakh Khan so that our children will realize that this place once was a residence of Khans.
На память вот этих, на всех ханов, я назвал вот этот памятник Казакh-Khana.
Other facilities were discovered at this site as well. The scientists suggest that at some period in history, a hoard of Kandilot was located along the route. During excavations, they discovered structures of later time which date back to around 11th, 12th century Anno Domini. This evidenced by many artifacts and coins found at the site. Archaeologists plan to establish a historic open-air museum which would be rich of unique discoveries. Ust-Kamenogorsk hosted the International Scientific Practical Conference devoted to the 170th birth anniversary of the great poet, philosopher and composer Abay. Scientists from China, Russia, Hungary and Turkey discussed the importance of Abay studies. The scientific community and students have learned about unique chronicles of the Moscow museums. The most interesting one was the resolution on the election of Abay Kunanbayev as the ruler of Shingiz parish dated 1886.
Here in China, we love Abay and read all his works. People look for his works translated into Chinese. Some people even read in the original language. In total, we have published more than 30 books on the works of Abay, and the work continues.
The head of the Presidential Orchestra of Kazakhstan, Talgat Berdigulov, conducted a combined orchestra of military orchestras of 1,500 musicians from 14 countries for the first time on Red Square.
Дирижер Талгат Бердигулов, Kazakhstan.
The best orchestras in the world bonded together in one venue to perform the Victory Day March as the 8th Military Music Festival Savoir Tower ended in Moscow. This year, the event impressed the audience with the large scale. Honor Guard and the orchestra of the Presidential Regiment Aybin take part in it the 5th consecutive year. This year, they have not only performed the already beloved by Muscovites Ablai Khan March and the song Moscow Never Sleeps, but also conquered the audience with a song from the repertoire of the Group 8 studio Soldier of Love and a medley on the topic of the Kazakh folk songs.
Москвичи знают этот оркестр, и каждый раз этот оркестр какой-то показывает новое.
The residents of Moscow know this orchestra. Each time the orchestra shows new, very interesting trends and styles, Muscovites love the orchestra, and Talgat has already become a symbol of the orchestra.
These were the main news for the past week on Kazakh TV. You're watching the news summary from Kazakhstan, my home country. I'm Zhana Sagandikova. I'll see you later. Have a good and productive week. Goodbye.
More programs at